This is Food for Thought with Deborah Walker. Today on Food for Thought I have personal development coach and speaker Yasmin Vorajee with me, and she's a lovely, lovely woman, so I just couldn't resist. We're going to talk about leadership and women and all those sorts of things. So hi, how are you, Yasmin?
Hi Debbie, I'm great, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So Yasmin, give my audience a little bit of background about yourself and what you specifically do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm an English woman living in the northwest of Ireland. Tell you a little bit about my family. I am married to an Irish farmer and I have two small children. I have been in the corporate world for about 12 years before I started my own business, and I've always been really fascinated with the whole world of personal development. And I grew up in an Indian Muslim home, and from a very young age it was always about how you went from your father's home to your husband's home. And part of me kind of always thought, well, what do I get to do anything in between, before I get to just kind of go and get married and have kids and all the rest of it. And so I was always intrigued by this idea that I didn't have control over my life. And so I kind of thought, well, do you know what, sod that, I don't believe in that. I'm going to make my own rules up. So from a young age, I've always been on this journey about how I can live the best life and the fullest life for myself and fulfill my own ambitions and my own aspirations. And that really has led me to make a lot of decisions based on kind of, I suppose, my values. So leaving home to go to university was a big no-no in our community. It was seen to be disrespectful to your family that you chose to live away by yourself. And I just kind of went, yeah, I'm going to do it. And so I suppose every time I've made a decision about doing something, it's always been about what's right for me. And then started work in the corporate world and really got into the whole training aspect. And I discovered I just had a love for it, and then kind of worked my way up in the organizations that I worked in, and then started really working with CEOs and executives, and became a VP of leadership development until I left the company and started my own business. And that's kind of what I'm doing at the moment. And because I'm a woman and because I've always been really passionate about women's empowerment, that's what I do now.
It's really interesting that that you've basically you talk about your background, the Indian Muslim home, and effectively they do just expect the women to effectively go from their father's home to their husband home. Yeah, I was actually having a conversation just this morning with one of my dog walking friends. Now she's in her late 60s, and she was more or less saying the same thing. She's white British, and in effect she was saying that her father, they put her into secretarial college because they expected her to marry the boss and not go any further. Now she went off and got a degree, and but her father wasn't interested in the degree, more interested in the fact that she hadn't actually gone and married someone successful.
I know, and yeah, maybe, it's funny, I suppose, when you have your own experience and you think that it's a unique experience, and what I've discovered, I'm sure like this lady as well, is that actually it seems to be quite a universal experience about the limitations that are put on women in terms of what you're able to do. And, I think there's always a part of your soul that thinks, is that it? And I'm not saying that getting married and having children is that it, that's nothing, because, it's the hardest job that I've ever done in my whole life, being a mum. But there's a part of, I'm sure we're here on this earth for a bigger reason, and it's just fascinating that women particularly have this, I suppose, upbringing, which kind of suggests that you literally just go from one man to another man. Don't get me started on the whole thing about, when your father gives you away on your wedding day, when he walks you up the aisle and all the rest of it. I could talk about that for a long time.
But it's at that point when you start to analyse those moments that you realise how masculine the world is.
Yeah.
Now, why do you think more and more women are using coaches nowadays? And we never heard of coaches when I was young, and now they're absolutely everywhere. You go to a networking event and there's a lot of coaches there, and often female.
I think particularly women are a target market for a lot of coaches, because women are very open, a lot of women are very open to the idea of coaching, to the idea that there's a transformation waiting to happen within them. And I think that when you're presented with a coach or somebody who really kind of gets you and understands what it is that you're trying to create, whether it's in your life, in terms of your relationships, or in terms of your career, in terms of your business, when you get a sense that actually there is something that I can do, I think a coach provides that window of opportunity, and it provides you with a glimpse of what that could look like. And I think that's what really gets people excited and think, oh yeah, I really want to work with a coach. And my first experience of coaching was in the corporate world. You know, we were coaching, it was a call center environment, so we were coaching people. I mean, we said we were coaching people, we were just telling them what to do. You know, there's a big difference between that. But I really got a sense of, I suppose, the potential of coaching and what it could really do for people. And that's where I really kind of fell in love with it myself.
The thing with coaching is it opens up the opportunity for people through the exploration, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, for me, it's a combination. It's not just, I mean, pure coaching in kind of the way that I was taught it and the way that I see a lot of schools of coaching advocate you not having the answers. You know, the coach doesn't have the answers. You know, you're just asking lots of questions and it's real pure inquiry. And for me, when my clients come to work with me, they're also expecting and looking for something else from me as well. So, you know, I can ask them all the questions in the world, but in my particular specialism, I'm also helping them to get to a particular, transformation, to an outcome that they're looking for. So it would be very remiss of me to not provide them with some direction, some kind of perspective, and ask them the questions that's going to help them to do that for themselves, but in a way that actually doesn't just feel like they're doing all the work and I'm not giving them any of my knowledge and expertise, you know, from my field.
So in many respects, you're acting as partly a mentor as well as a coach.
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise, you know, I could go and just talk to my next door neighbour and say, can you ask me lots of questions? I think that when you, especially from a business perspective, you're really looking for somebody who's also going to be able to help you get some more distinctions in how you're doing your business. And really, for me, I suppose when I think about the work that I do with my clients, when I ask for feedback about what is it that's really valuable and beneficial, what do you get out of the relationship, for them it's that sense of perspective, it's that sense of direction, it's a sense of, okay, I can do this, I now have the tools and the strategies to allow me to do what it is that I want to do. And that for me is really the clincher. And then all the other stuff is in there as well, in terms of the mindset, in terms of, who you're being as well as what you're doing. So for me, it's like a beautiful kind of fusion of the two.
I feel that in many respects, our managerial structures really don't support people in exploring their thinking, particularly women. And their career paths are often shut down because there seems to be you have to go through a specific path to actually get there, and the managerial structure almost makes that happen on purpose. And when you start to have your coaching, it can help you to see that there are other ways of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think whether you have your own business or whether you're working in an organisation, for me it's always been about doing what's right for you and what's right for where you are in your stage of life. So I was recently a guest speaker on the Global Women in Leadership Summit, and one of the things that I was talking about was this idea of the glass cliff. It's not the glass ceiling, it's the glass cliff. That there's all this question about, well, why are women not making it to the boards of companies, and we're not seeing enough senior leaders who are women. And I said, but the majority of women, I'm not saying about this everybody, but I said, but the majority of women will go, will stop their career to have a baby, maybe not for a long time, but at least for a few months you're going to stop to have a baby. And a lot of women, their values change and their priorities change, and so they tend to fall off this glass cliff. And it's really hard to get back to the level that you were at. So if you're at middle management level before you had a family, then it's really hard if you take some time out, which is an interesting euphemism because, again, like I say, it's not easy. It's hard work being a mom. When you go back into the world of work, it's almost as if you've just been on holidays and you're no longer cut out for it. And so for me, that really doesn't sit well with me, first of all. And I suppose I'm really passionate about changing the paradigm. I was like, let's get away from the old way of thinking, because I suppose the business world as it stands right now doesn't suit women, in that respect that, when you start to have a family, and we need women to have children, not every single woman wants to have children, and that's absolutely fine. That's entirely everyone's choice, but we still do need women to actually reproduce, to create, to kind of sustain future generations as well. So how can we then change the way we do business? And that's what I'm really interested in.
The thing is that, we're looking at business there, but fundamentally, Parliament doesn't even support women going into becoming MPs. Our Parliament still holds sit-ins at night, and they go on for all hours, and it's truly not supportive of never mind women, but also men who have families who may be a sole carer.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's outrageous, and it's interesting when we have all of this debate around encouraging more women to lead and encouraging more women in those positions, and yet we do nothing about changing the structures and to allow people to do that. Because if you have young children, you're not going to be able to fulfill your obligations, and in the end you always end up sacrificing one or the other. And I think that, maybe it doesn't have to be that way. Maybe it doesn't have to be an either or. Maybe it can be an and. Maybe you can have both. Maybe you can spend the time with your children and, raise them in the best way that you possibly can, but also you're able to fulfill your personal aspirations as well. So just because you've become a mom or a dad doesn't mean that all of who you are suddenly ends.
The thing is, though, is this is why, for me, there's the growth of female-led businesses where they're starting them themselves. So the mumpreneur is actually happening, because to get back into business at the same level as you're saying, and to go in a flexible way is almost impossible. And even though companies will say that they're flexible in their hours and their approach to women returners, actually they are not. And I know that from experience of working in HR. And over again, someone working part-time hours will actually be doing full-time hours in those part-time days. And this is where you end up, we're wondering why our salaries for women overall, if you average everybody out, are lower than men's. It's because the only part-time jobs that end up being available are in your local stores, are in your lower level jobs, because to go back in at the higher levels for many women leaders is almost impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I think that's why we're seeing a lot more women starting their own businesses. And this is where I think the potential is amazing, because we're not just talking about the solopreneur. We're not just talking about the one-woman operation. We're talking about businesses that actually can change the way that everybody works. So, when you're a woman leader, if you have your own business, you're going to have staff as it grows. You'll have staff, whether they're a physical team or it's a virtual team. But for me, it's really about building businesses that, the way that I look at it, is like that are gorgeous to lead, amazing to work for as well. Because not everyone's going to be cut out to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone's cut out to be a business leader. But you want to work for somebody who inspires you in that way. And also then, you think about the end user, the customer, so it's pure pleasure to buy from as well. And I really think that encouraging more women to grow their businesses as well is really the key. It's not just about, I suppose it's something that Brendan Burchard, one of my mentors, says about, don't let your small business make you small-minded. It's really about thinking bigger and thinking about the impact that you can have. And I think that, for me, is just part of the deliciousness of it all, I suppose. It's just kind of really going, what else could we do?
But in many respects, Schumacher says, small is beautiful.
Well, as somebody who's 5'1", I would agree with that.
It's inevitable. But I think there's this whole the ability that when you move out of the corporate sector, where often the demands are placed on not just women but sole carers, so they struggle to actually keep a job there. When we move out of that sector and we start to create the rules for ourselves, actually it does create completely different businesses.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting debate as well, because I was talking about this with somebody the other day, that you've got the Sheryl Sandbergs from Facebook, and you've got like the Marissa Mayers from Yahoo, who are talking about advancing women. But these women are multi-millionaires, and Marissa Mayer had a nursery built next to her office after she had her baby. So, there's it feels like there's a disparity, a massive disparity really in that case, where, the average woman is saying, well, I can't bring my child to work. So I think it's really about thinking what works for, the majority of people. It's not just about these people who are, you'd class as an elite. But it's really about, well, what can we create that allows, families to thrive as well? Because, we see so many problems that that are always attributed to women working. And, oh, God forbid the mum should want to go and work and, have a life outside of her family. But we're not making it easy for them either. Like you say, they end up kind of in the lower paid jobs. There's still that disparity in wages between men and women, and it just keeps perpetuating.
What I found interesting was when I did work in HR, the men would always negotiate their salary and the women would accept what they were given 99% of the time. Yeah,
and it's so fascinating, because my sister actually, Yasmin Vorajee, she's based in Australia, but that's what she's actually has spent most of her career doing, is helping women negotiate their salaries, because every time that she made a move, she negotiated hard and got the salary that she wanted. But I've read the research as well that would say that, men will go in and, they look at it as a starting point.
Yeah.
Whereas a woman will go in and say, yeah, okay, that's the final number. And, and it kind of gets you thinking about, well, what's stopping a woman from saying, well, I want more? Is it that she's going to come across as, that she's greedy, that, God forbid that we use that word ambitious, because there's no problem being an ambitious man, there is a problem being an ambitious woman.
And why do you think there's that perception?
I think we don't have enough role models of where women who are really authentic, and I know that word kind of gets used a lot, but really authentic to who they are. We see more examples, and maybe this is more kind of a reflection of what we see every day. We see more women who are, power hungry and aggressive, and we almost equate that to all women, as leaders. Whereas we don't necessarily do that with men. We don't look at a Donald Trump, or we don't look at a Richard Branson and assume all men are like that. Yet we might look at, Margaret Thatcher obviously was a classic example. People were looking at Margaret Thatcher, and yesterday on the news I was watching Rebecca Brooks. So there's this, I suppose, demonization of women who are at the top. Where they talk about Rebecca Brooks' long hair, and it's all of this kind of, it's like spinning the story around a high-powered woman, or even that phrase, a high-powered woman. I've never heard of that being used as a high-powered man.
Yeah,
I thought it's just interesting how we talk about men and women and the stories that we tell around power and influence.
Well, it kind of there's lots of negative words around women and men around women. For instance, spinster against bachelor. That sort of thing.
In that one.
But also, I worked in an industry where they would actually refer to some of the higher level women as ball breakers. They were, but actually that was how they referred to.
Yeah, I know. It was funny, actually. One of my old managers used to talk about, it being a ball ache. I'd be looking at it, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Thank you for that insight. I was fascinated by one of your blogs where, about who do you learn leadership from? Because that fits in with this at the moment. When I look at a lot of women in power, I will run a mile nowadays from them, because they have seemed to have lost their heart, particularly women in government. The likes of Hillary Clinton, I cannot look at her without almost seething, I have to say. Their femininity has been lost. They're almost pseudo men. And I feel that the nature of women and what we bring to the table, it's truly being lost by some of these women who you almost want to say, I want a role model, but actually, where are they?
Yeah, somebody who really embodies what it is to be a woman. And again, that's not to pigeonhole, there's all different types of women. We're not all, I suppose sometimes when you think about feminine behaviours and somebody thinks, oh, that's all fluffy and vague. And no, for me, it's really about the essence of who you are. And like you say, that I think, to be successful, it's almost like you have to kind of shed that part of you. And it's interesting, I was thinking about this, I can't remember the name of the MP, but she's heavily pregnant. And there was a story about her that nobody stood up to give her a seat in, I think they were debating some legislation. And it was really interesting, her reaction, because she was saying, it's not sickness, I can stand for 30 minutes, I can do my job. And it was almost like she was saying, well, just because I'm pregnant doesn't mean that I can't do my job, I can still stand up. She was heavily pregnant. And as somebody who's gone through 2 pregnancies, by the time you get to the end, you're like thinking, oh my God, I just need to sit down. I'm exhausted, this is taking it out of me. And it was almost as if she couldn't allow anybody to see that, that it was somehow a weakness. And I just thought it was fascinating. And other people were saying, a lot of the men who were in the room and said, oh, I didn't see that she was there, otherwise I would have stood up. You know how you see on the buses where it says, give this seat up to somebody who needs it, and it's normally an elderly or a pregnant woman. And they genuinely said, like, I didn't see her, so I didn't, I would have given my seat up. But it was more her reaction that interested me, that she was saying that, well, I can stand for 30 minutes and I'm a good leader. And you're like thinking, well, we're not discounting that. We're not saying that you're a bad person or a bad MP. We're just saying that maybe you might want to sit down because you've got, you're heavily pregnant. You're growing a baby, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's that whole lack of acceptance that we are women and that we have different needs.
Yeah. Hide the bump. Don't show anybody that you're pregnant. It's just, I find it frustrating, but on the other hand, I find it exciting because you think, okay, well, do you know what? What could we do? What can we do to change the story?
The thing is, for me, it swings from one extreme to another. So we've got those role models, and then you look in the lads' mags, and you've basically got your little fluffy sex symbol who's working her way up the career ladder there, with her breasts out, thinking she's made it.
I know, and and you just think, oh God, if you could just sit. I mean, and I'm sure we were probably like this when we were teenagers as well. But when you just want to be able to say to girls, there is so much more that you can do. This is not the aspiration. I went to an all-girls school in high school, and I really benefited from that. And because it was a mixed school in primary school, but then I went to an all-girls high school. And I know there's been some research around whether girls do better in a mixed school or a same-sex school. And I think that there certainly is something around women adapting themselves to not make a man feel like he's less of somebody. Where you try and show that you're not that brainy, or that you don't have all of these skills or all of these, awesomeness about you. And I think that it's really about encouraging girls to really step into that power and say, actually, do you know what? I'm pretty amazing. And you're amazing too. Just because I'm amazing doesn't take away anything from you. And I think it's really about how men and women are interacting from a young age all the way up.
Because it's such a mixed message about female success.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's, for me, I always think like, okay, when I come to the end of my life, will I look back and think, okay, yes, I did what I wanted to do, or I did what society wanted me to do. And I think it's got to be that point where you really think about what is important for you, what are your values. Whilst my children are small, my business is growing, but I know that as they get older, my business will take on a different look and feel, because obviously they won't be, I won't have little children kind of holding onto my legs and demanding milk and all the rest of it. So it's about what's right for you and what's right for ourselves and our families. But I really think that it's not about saying, oh God, little old me, I can't make a difference. But it's about every single person making their difference that actually makes the big difference. I think that's what's really important.
That's the journey of 1,000 miles, isn't it?
Exactly. And for me, it's like, I get so excited about the potential and about the capability. Like, I'm running a webinar on the 13th of November, and I've called it Girl on Fire.
I love that name. I really loved it.
Yeah, it's like Alicia Keys is in my head, and it's funny because before we did the interview, before we were chatting, I always have that on in the morning to kind of get me really fired up. I'm somebody who, for years and years and years, has always lived in my head. Everything, all the decisions, everything was made from my head. And I'm sure some of your listeners probably can relate in when you just feel like your head's going to explode, and you're thinking, oh my God, I couldn't possibly think another thought because I'm about to keel over, with all these thoughts.
That's me.
That?
That's me at the moment.
Yeah. And it's something that I learned since I started my own business. Something that has really been a great learning for me is really about engaging all of me. My heart, my body, my head, my soul, everything, because that's really where all that, I suppose, I call it the divine leadership. That's where it all sits. That's where it all lives. So I put the music on and I just go full out. And my kids look at me as if I'm crazy. But my son loves to dance. He's only 3, but he loves to dance. He's always talking about putting his dancing shoes on. But, it's just, we just go all out. And we just play full out as well. And for me, this is what the movement is all about. It's like putting yourself, getting yourself so excited that you do feel like that girl on fire, that you just think, oh my God, I want to just take it all on now. I want to do it. I want to do it. So that's really, for me, it's like, it's the whole idea that, okay, we keep getting told that women aren't doing this, this, and this, and we're not reaching the top positions. Okay, well, maybe that's not what we want to do, but let's recreate the rules and let's start one person at a time.
Well, create the top positions for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because it's business.
CEOs and
yeah,
and I always find this interesting as well because I get a lot of emails from men who say that like, oh, I really like what you do, but I know you only work with women. Or I get the other type where it says, like, well, we're a men and this is men bashing. And it absolutely isn't. I love men. I think that we all have an amazing contribution to make. And I think the debate is around the fact that women's contribution has been ignored and neglected for so long. So again, simply by giving women a greater voice doesn't mean that we are then taking something away from men. We all have a part to play. So it's really about engaging and bringing it all to life, not excluding one for the sake of the other.
I just love, the fact that when I came away from my job, it was a bit different for me because I'd previously, prior to having my corporate job, had been self-employed as an artist. So I was far more free thinking anyway. So I did my job for a period of years, or a number of jobs. And then I came out of it and set my own business up. And I just feel the opportunity for women is in the self-employed sector, because I feel it allows us to set our own rules and to do what you say. Actually, it helps you awaken your brilliance.
Yeah, and I think for people who, like I say, being self-employed, being an entrepreneur, it's not the easy road. By all stretch of the imagination, it's absolutely worth it. But for those women who are thinking, well, I want to work my way up in an organisation, it's really about thinking, okay, it's kind of like the insider job. What can you do in your world, in your role, that will actually mean that you can change the rules from within? It's about thinking creatively around that.
So many women get emotionally drawn into their jobs, though, don't they? And this is where they end up almost as workaholics.
Yeah. And it's funny as well because it seems like a real badge of honour these days when people are so busy that I haven't had time for lunch and I haven't had time to go to the bathroom, and I just look at them and go, really?
Yeah.
Really? Is that what you're going to be telling yourself at the end of your life, that, God, I was so busy that I couldn't even stop to have a sandwich? And that always frustrated me so much in corporate world, because I said, just because you're busy doesn't mean that you're actually being productive or you're being effective. There's a lot of great leaders out there who are, I think, I remember reading something about Richard Branson, about how he takes time out to just do the thinking, just to go and be creative, rather than constantly firefighting, constantly looking at all the problems that are coming up. You really need time in your business, in your roles, for that, opportunity to let all the the ideas and things, kind of be really fostered and nurtured, rather than just, from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. Oh my God, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. And, oftentimes when you look back on your day, you're probably thinking, God, I was really busy. But when you really think, well, what did I achieve today? That can be a really difficult question to ask.
Well, it's the busy fool scenario, isn't it, in many respects?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me as well, I suppose the work that I do is very much around getting leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners really focused on exactly what it is that they need to be doing, and not trying to do everything as well, because I think that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks, where you try and do everything by yourself. And I remember one of my mentors saying to me that, you can get everything done, but it doesn't necessarily have to be by you, it can be through you. So you have a team, you delegate. Again, it's that scary word about delegating. Nobody can do it like me. And this is what I really help kind of, I suppose, my clients get comfortable with, is the idea that actually you don't have to do everything. This is what's your area of talent, where's your genius. Do more of that and let other people support you in the areas that you're not that great at. And you know what? That you probably don't necessarily need to do either. And I think that's what's really, that's what makes a leader highly effective, is knowing that you're not meant to do everything.
I do find it interesting though, because I have noticed in the past the difference between male and female in regards to their thinking around this, and women will take on more and more workload and will do more and more and more. And when I was talking, I did an interview with Helen Churier, and we were talking about how women are almost genetically hardwired to take on more and more.
Yeah. Well, that's saying that, if you're looking for something to get done, ask a busy woman. She probably will take it on. And I have a free report on my website, YasminVorajee.com, and I called it "The Trouble with Superheroes." It's this whole idea that you're meant to do everything. And it's like, no, not at all. Because I suppose when you start your own business, if you have your own business, and one of the great, dreams about it is the flexibility and the fact that you can have a lifestyle. And yet most self-employed people end up creating a job for themselves that they can't walk away from, that they can't even take a couple of days holidays. And they're just thinking, what have I done here? There's no lifestyle here. I've actually made it worse.
And this is the thing, though, isn't it? With most self-employed people, at first they do. They have to get to almost over capacity before they can stop, to actually, because they're about to keel over more than anything. Yeah,
and for me, it's like, well, let's not let you fall over. Kind of be proactive and be deliberate about this. I remember having a conversation a couple of months ago with a client of mine, and we were chatting about Christmas. And, I was saying, okay, so you're taking Christmas week off. Oh, God, no. And it was just interesting. And I said, have you ever taken Christmas off in the years that you've had your business? No, I can't. And we ended up having a really interesting conversation and discussion. And then a week later, he says, I've put it all in place. I'm going to take Christmas week off.
Wow.
And that was just music to my ears, because I thought, it's not about just stepping away and saying, I'm just going to take a holiday. We were very proactive. We were very deliberate around how she was going to be able to take the time out. But it's always got to be in the back of your mind. It's like, how does my business carry on when I'm not there? But, so if you were sick, nobody can anticipate sickness. And you don't want your whole business to come crashing around your ears because you're not there.
And a lot of your work is enabling women to actually move, almost leverage what they've got, isn't it? To actually move into that. It's a team effort, not an individual effort.
Exactly. And, I know myself, like, yes, I'm a one-woman operation from home, but I have 2 small children. I have a virtual team, which means that I can get a lot more done, and it's not all done by me. So it means that I can then spend the time with my children, and it works for everybody. But it's about leveraging what you have, and I kind of stay focused on what it is that I do best, and allow other people to support me in, say, for example, technical things and, technology and all that kind of good stuff. Somebody else can do it for me.
It's that whole letting go. It's interesting about taking time out to be creative and just taking time off, because I know when I was working, taking time out to actually, with design strategy, but actually taking time out to truly be creative and just explore was never, you were just never given that time. You just really weren't. And if you were off somewhere else, it was just felt that you weren't being the busy fool and you weren't doing enough work.
Yeah, and I think it it was Google, that they had like certain amount of, I think, was it,
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact percentage, but they had a percentage of time that was, you know, for their own projects. And I think recently, I remember reading something about how they'd got rid of that. And it was, you know, you're almost like thinking, okay, well, this was a philosophy that you started off with. Mm-hmm. Try and hold on to it, even as you're getting bigger. See whether you can stay true to kind of the values that you had at the beginning, which, you know, I think so many great ideas are born out of doing nothing.
Yeah. Well, they're the guys who've just been in, they've had, I can't remember his name, but a trainer in who's done, they haven't called it meditation sessions, but effectively that's what it is. It's basically being able to zone out sessions, and they've trained people to do that. They've trained a lot of their staff to do that, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, because it's funny, because I was about saying that my son, like I said, he's 3, and he said to me the other day, I'm bored. And I thought, well, where have you picked that up from?
Yeah.
For goodness. And I thought, it must be from creche. And I said, no, it's okay. It just means that you're not interested. But go and find something that you know does interest you. Because I think one of the things that you find is that we overschedule our lives to an extent that, you know, like, okay, 10 o'clock I'm going to do this, 11 o'clock I'm going to do this. And everything is packed into a routine, a very tight routine. Like, I'm all in favour for having routines that allow you to then, you know, kind of build in that flexibility. But when everything is tightly structured and there's no flexibility, and we do this with our kids as well as, you know, for ourselves, you know, you really don't allow your sort of just to listen to what's going on around you. And so, you know, in the mornings when I'm, you know, hopefully when I get the chance, you know, in the mornings when I'm up first in the whole house, I like to be able to sit down and have a cup of tea or coffee and just take some time out to think. Because before I get thrown into daily life and all the activity, we just forget how important it is to actually take the time out. And I think it's a lovely, funny word I'm using, a lovely development that we're seeing in corporate companies where people are actually encouraged to just take a step back. You know, because I think that can only do, you know, that can only be good if it's done in a way that kind of really helps our creativity kind of really flourish.
I think lots of companies have to take a step back and give more breathing space to their employees, because, you know, the mental health stats are just showing that actually it's that currently the way people are working is not supportive of that, unfortunately.
No, and yeah, I mean, wasn't it a couple of months ago where we heard about the young intern in London who died after having worked, you know, just ridiculous hours on the trot. And we're just, I suppose it really saddens me to see world of work turning into that. And that's the only way that you can succeed. And especially when you think about the recession and kind of the difficult economic times, and you see companies asking more and more and more from their employees. But it's like, well, we can't just keep expecting people to produce more. You know, there's a capacity, there is a limit. But let's get a bit clever about how we can actually get more out of people, rather than, you know, it's the whole presenteeism that I think Ricky Gervais did a great sketch about this, you know, where you leave your jacket on the back of your chair. People think that you've been in since 5 o'clock in the morning or something like that. Or you walk around with a piece of paper, because that looks like as if you're on your way to somewhere and you're doing something.
The thing is, you're absolutely right. A lot of it now is that basically people are turning up, not really engaged in the slightest, and just want to go. So many people I meet nowadays just truly do not enjoy their working lives because of how pressurized it is. And I just think, you know, many of these companies are still making quite a big profits, and this is where it's become profits over people. And even, you know, we talk about the recession, but you know, they're still looking after their shareholders, and the profits are significant. And so I do feel for many of these people.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons I get excited about kind of, I suppose, more women-led businesses is really the potential that we have to, I suppose, utilize business as a way of transforming how we live. You know, so creating more inspiring businesses that, you know, where I said that they're amazing to work for as well. So, you know, when you're really loyal. So if you've got really bad weather, you do whatever you can to make it into work because you love going in and you feel like you're part of a bigger picture. And when I get to work with, I suppose, business leaders and entrepreneurs, that's the really exciting bit, is where I can really empower them so that they can empower their staff and their team, create that as well. Because I think there's a great buzz around that.
Now, you say on your website, and I touched on it earlier about awakening brilliance. How do you, in those environments, awaken brilliance?
The environments of businesses, is it?
Yeah.
So for me, it's working with the leadership team. It's working with those people that have a great impact. And one of the interesting things that I found when you read the research about why people leave a business, and you're probably familiar with this, obviously with your background in HR as well, Debbie, that, majority of people leave not because of benefits, not because of the work hours, but because of the person who is their immediate manager. That they have the biggest impact in somebody's, I think, enjoyment of the role. And I certainly saw this because I got to work in my corporate world. I got to work with kind of leaders at all levels, so people who hadn't even taken on a managerial position, people who were kind of junior leaders, middle leaders, and then senior leaders. And it always fascinated me to see that there could be this massive gap between what the senior leadership team were, aspiring to and hoping to create in their businesses, and then the kind of the people at the coalface. And there was such a big gap. And so it really got me thinking that it can't just be about senior leaders, but there's only so much that, one person can do. It's about creating that culture. And really it does start from the top. So for me, it's about empowering that person to start that process of creating a culture that really, whatever the values are of the business, that they can really then nourish, enhance, and really value. So about maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I was working in a company where we were really bringing in a coaching culture, where we were talking about how we can get more out of people rather than just telling them what to do. And that proved to be an interesting initiative because it took a lot longer than anybody expected, first of all. I think that's always true of any of these kind of change programs. But what was really interesting was that people who were at the coalface really took to it. They really liked it. The leadership teams were tended to be a little bit more hesitant about it. They're like, oh, but this is how we've always done things. So when I'm working with business leaders and entrepreneurs, like I said, it could be somebody who is a solopreneur, who has a virtual team, or it could be somebody who has, an actual physical team, or it could be a big organization. For me, it's always about having a level of clarity around what it is exactly that you're looking to create, looking to achieve, what are your outcomes. And then it's about creating a program of change, a program of empowerment that allows you then to be able to build, also bring everybody with you on that journey. So I know I also worked on a project that was really about getting senior leaders to be more proactive, not waiting necessarily for the CEO to kind of just fire off directions. And again, that was really interesting because it took longer than we expected, but it also indicated how far the leadership team had to go before they could be fully owning what it is that they had to do. Does that answer the question, Debbie?
Yeah, well, I'm going to come back in many respects with, it sounds like the same as I've heard before in my own roles years ago. And is it because it's really no different, but people just aren't applying those things?
You're absolutely right, Debbie. You've hit the nail on the head. The problem is in the actual execution of it. And when I say that, it took longer than that we expected, that's the number one reason, is because people don't follow through on it. It becomes flavor of the month. So, oh yeah, great, we're going to do coaching culture for November, and that's great. Oh, right, next month, what we're going to do then? And that's probably been the biggest problem. And this is what, in the work that I do with my clients, like I say, over a period of time, is to make sure that doesn't happen. You need a level of accountability. I think that is absolutely critical. Regardless of how you run your business, you need to have a level of accountability to say, okay, we said we were going to do this. Did we do it? And did we do it to the best of our abilities? And if we didn't do it, how do we get back on track? It's not about just, putting it on the back burner and saying, oh yeah, we'll come back to that. I know a company that spent like £500,000 on it was like a sales program, and within 6 months, there was no mention of it. There's nothing more frustrating. £500,000, that is significant investment. I don't care how big your business is, that is a significant investment, and to not then follow through. But I think the follow through has to be created in such a way that means that it is relatively easy to do. It can't be that, okay, you need to be talking with your team every hour on the hour for 5 minutes. You've got to make it work for your business as well. So yes, I agree with you, Debbie, that there's nothing new in what I'm saying. It's in the execution that makes the big difference. And certainly what I've seen in a lot of self-employed people and leaders, whether you're working in an organization or it's your own one, is that, you kind of allow yourself to get off track. And sometimes that deviation is so slight, you don't realize it until you've gotten so far off the track. And you look back and you think, oh, holy crap, what have we done here? We're not where we need to be. And so it's about that absolute pinpoint execution, accountability. One of my clients called me her little Tweety bird. That she thought, it was like as if I was sitting on her shoulder and not telling her off because she didn't do something, but she said in a friendly but firm manner, you'd bring me back on track and say, okay, let's have a look and see what it is that you said you would do. I haven't done that. Why didn't I do it? Okay, let me get back on track.
I feel a fundamental difference between how I feel now in my own business and how I felt working for someone else is that I actually get excited about what I do every single day and about the opportunity and the fact that if there's no profit being made, or if there's, if I'm not being successful financially, then I actually know that my clients are giving me a clear indication that I'm not very good, and so it keeps me quite accountable, in all honesty, to them. And so I get excited about what I can do, all the different campaigns and things like this. But I think that's truly missing that true engagement in larger businesses.
Yeah. Like I suppose on the Girl on Fire, the webinar that I'm doing, I have a video up on the sign-up page. And it was really funny because when I was recording this video, it didn't feel like I was talking about my business. It really felt like I was talking about my purpose. And the question that I always ask myself is, would you do this anyway? And I said, yes, absolutely, yes. So even if it wasn't my business, this is something that is absolutely so important to me that I would do this regardless. I can't wait for the webinar because I'm just like kind of all so excited because I really just want to be able to share what it is that I think we can do. And so for me, it's about the big picture, which is obviously what I've been talking about, but it's great to, have all of those ideas and the aspirations, but it's like, how do we make it actually physically work day to day? And that's kind of really what I'm going to share as well on the webinar as well. It's just that, business leaders probably thinking, great, Yasmin, that sounds absolutely fantastic. How do I bring that to life in my business? And that's what I want to really talk about, is the big picture and the nitty-gritty. And like you said, you've heard a lot of this stuff before. What makes the difference? And that is what I want to share.
You're going to rewrite the rules?
I'm going to start. I'm going to make a start. I can't do it by myself, but I'm going to certainly give it a go because you know what? What have I got to lose?
And where would you start? What would be at least, the first one, do you think?
For me, clarity, I know it's a word that gets used a lot, but for me, that has to be the most important starting point, is that we need to know where we are right now and where we want to get to. So for every single woman, every single man that comes talking to me about their business or about their role, it's really about understanding what it is that you want to create and what your values are that support that. Because if you've got somebody who says, I really want to make it to the CEO position, and we also talk about their values, it's about making sure that both of those don't conflict. That makes sense. So when I talk about setting the rules or changing the rules, it's like, let's not just let's not just live according to the way that business has been structured right now. Let's think about how we can change those rules. And if you find that your current organization doesn't support that, then go and find one that does. I think that is probably one of the most important things, is that if you don't have your own business, and you're still working in an organization, if you don't feel like I'm really, truly engaged with the purpose and the cause of this business, then go and find one that does.
I think that's such a powerful statement and so profound, because of course many people feel truly disempowered about that at the moment in the current climate.
Yeah. And, so there's a place for everybody. If you don't want your own business, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Go and find a company that you really do feel passionate about. And the beauty of it is, those companies are popping up more and more and more. So, and the more that we see that, I really want people to be engaged. I just get so tired and saddened when I hear people talking about, oh, it's Monday again, and we're wishing our lives away.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's the weekend. And I have to say, since having my own business and plus having 2 children, weekends don't really exist for us, because every day is the same day when you have children anyway, because you're still doing all the nappies and feeding and all the rest of it. But I really genuinely cannot make a distinction about Mondays, because every day I get to do something that I really love to do. And I want that for everybody. I don't want it just to be for this, small group of people. But you have to have courage to pursue that. You absolutely have to have courage to pursue that. And I think that when I kind of go back to how I started this interview with you around, how my journey started, it didn't just happen. I had to really find the courage to then, go against what my community was saying. Thankfully, I have the most amazing parents, but even for them, it was a real struggle to kind of marry up what their daughter wanted to do with the expectations of community. So every single thing that we want to do in our lives, we always need courage. And it's about really, I suppose, bringing that out and really kind of getting in touch with that so that we are actually able to then follow through. I have this model around inspiring greatness. And for me, there's 4 key elements that you need to have in terms of anything that you really want to do in your life. Is, first of all, you've got to have the clarity about what it is that you want. Then you've got to have the courage. Then you've got to have the confidence. And that's a big reason what holds many women back is, a lack of confidence. And then finally, capability. And I put capability at the end because, you can learn a lot of the skills. You can learn what you need to know for whatever it is that you want to do. But you really need to have the clarity, the courage, and the confidence as your stable foundation, as your rock-solid foundation. And then capability comes into that as well. But anything that you want to create, anything that you want to be really fantastic at, you really need these key pieces in place. And that's kind of what I do in my work.
Yasmin is one of those women who are rewriting the rules for business and how we can all be far more empowered within them and can take far more control about the type of business we truly want to see happening in the future. Let's help her rewrite the rules. So, Yasmin, tell me about this webinar, Girl on Fire, and tell me about how people get in contact with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm holding a very special and unique webinar on the 13th of November at 11 a.m. GMT. And this is what I've called Girl on Fire. Is that you? And it's all about rocking our world. And it's about really getting to grips and getting to understand who we are and what we want to create. Whether you're a business leader, an entrepreneur, you want to be one, this is the call for you, because I suppose the way that I look at it is it's designed to empower you, inspire you, and completely fire you up. Now, to sign up for the webinar, go to www.findyourinnerceo.com/Girl on Fire. And there's a video there, so you get a chance to kind of hear my thoughts around this and why you should join the call and the movement. Sign up and you'll get all the details on that. So that's www.findyourinnerceo.com/Girl on Fire. And I'm really excited because, like I said, I would do this regardless. This is something that is really exciting for me. But what I want to do is share with you the big picture around how we change, how we set the world on fire, but then how we actually make that work in our businesses. So from a very practical element as well. And don't worry if you can't make the call live, then still sign up, and because I will be sending out a recording as well. So I firmly believe it is our time. It is our time. So come and join me. If you also come on to my website, www.yasminvorajee.com, and that's YasminVorajee.com. I also have that free report that I mentioned earlier on in the interview that's called The Trouble with Superheroes. and I just share with you some strategies that will really help you to kind of understand how you don't have to do everything, how it can be done by you, how it can be done through you, not by you. So I look forward to sharing the journey with you and getting you all excited and fired up.
Superb, Yasmin. It's been really, really good to talk to you. You've kind of made me revisit my HR past. I have to say. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Debbie.